Hello and welcome to a Halloween spectacular of Peaceful Packs. My name is Lapin, your planeswalker friend from the valley in Bloomburrow, here to celebrate the spookiest day of the year with this channel's first collector booster opening. Now, I mentioned in a previous video I've never actually opened a collector booster before. I have opened one since then, and I have recorded it to upload later to the channel. But since this is Halloween, I thought, why not jump back to one of the spookiest sets from Magic, Innistrad. Crimson Vow, which we have here, is a set containing vampires, ghouls, ghosts, monsters, and the determined humans trying to fight them off and secure a better life for themselves. In this pack, we will find, hopefully, double-sided art, as this set relied heavily on transformation mechanics, whether it's with werewolves or ghosts that flip over from humans when they die. There were crossover cards with Bram Stoker's Dracula. Maybe we'll see Dracula or Jonathan Harker or Van Helsing in here. But most of all, we can just enjoy some sexy vampires and scary monsters on this Halloween, otherwise known as Gay Christmas. So, open this up in the mic. Actually, just even the art on this pack is very cool. A bunch of little sort of wolf pterodactyl bats. We have a bloody-haired vampire offering a sort of blood-filled vessel to another vampire with a sword. It's quite a dynamic little bit of story here. So let's see what we get. Fierce Retribution. The shiny foils on these. We have here a vampire hunter about to stake a sleeping vampire. Iconic scene. It won't bring them back, but it will bring me peace. Yeah, a little revenge quest here. Someone's lost someone to the vampires, but even though they know this journey won't bring them back to them, they're willing to risk it all just to get a little bit of peace and quiet. I love how the candle flames look here. Vampires always rocking that fantastic gothic fashion. Look at that cravat. Syncopate. So we have a mage here on a ship in choppy water, riding a tattered, ruined boat and using what looks very cool in foil, abjuration magic to ward off a lightning bolt. Look at that. Fool, can't you see that the tide has turned against you? Very dramatic ship-based combat. Pyre Spawn. So we have a flaming elemental demon here. Look at how the fire set off in the foil. Memories of the Harvesttide tragedy festered until they grew into an incarnate rage that set the world ablaze. So clearly, a harvest festival, they're burning these big wooden structures, but something's gone wrong, and the anger and the upset of the people has brought back one of the harvest statues as a flaming elemental. Quite cool. A little bit of the background details here. You see trees on the bluff and just seeing the way the wood splinters and burns. Desperate Farmer. So I've got a dead horse here, and you see the carrion bird here having a little peck, and clearly so is the farmer. Going to have to eat this horse. Times are tough. You see the sheep in the background. I don't know if it's just the foiling, but they seem to have very haunted eyes. This is a double-sided card. A tragic moment pushed him to a blasphemous act. Wow, there's so many sheep. They're all watching. Let's see what happens when they transform. When another creature you control dies, transform Desperate Farmer into Depraved Harvester. So now they've brought back that horse that they've eaten. Love that sort of horse skeleton, Mary Lloyd feel to it. While they're riding on the back with the pitchfork out. Once he'd tasted that dark power, there was no turning back. So he's clearly crossed some kind of line, committed a taboo, thought he was just going to eat horse meat, which, you know, rough, but turns out something a lot darker happened here. I love the dramatic bird here. All the birds hiding in the wheat and chaff. It's got that really desolate farmyard feel to it. You see in a lot of horror, a lot of folk horror. Boarded window. This is a very funny little artifact. And creatures attacking you get -1/0, so you're reducing the power of all of the attacking creatures. But if you were dealt 4 or more damage in a turn, it gets exiled. Basically, you're keeping things out, but after a certain amount of damage pushes through, the creatures break through. It's really good flavor. Love these creatures. Like, what? I'm not quite sure what they are. They're kind of werewolfy. They're kind of gargoyle-y, but big, big teeth, red gums, and they're just chewing their way through these boards. They're not going to last very long. A big, cursed-looking eye. Love the effects on the stone and wood. It's like kind of popping, you know, just makes it like you're looking at this window. It's got this sort of 3D effect the way it pushes through. Sturdy nails make for sound sleep. Cosper low of the Silburn Guard. Screaming Swarm. Ooh. So these are like seagulls or some other bird, but they've been turned into... They've got a sort of cephalopod infestation. You can see there's still beak, but coming out are these tentacles. I always struggle to tell the difference between tentacles and tendrils. They've got their little suckers on the bottom. Maybe they were eating squid or octopus and then got taken over. Big old swarm of seagulls taken over by some kind of cephalopod. Plains. As a mono white player, always happy to have more plains. Oh, look at that rainbow foiling. I love the black and white lands in this set so much. Like, they're really stark scenes, really good horror. Look at the moons coming out, the fogs rolling in. Desolate graveyard, big sort of cursed, gnarled tree, sort of almost ersatz human limbs, the way the tree branches are spiraling out, and then just the rainbowing in the black and white. That looks amazing. That's definitely going in my mono white deck. Fantastic. Howlpack Piper. So this is one of the werewolves. See here a couple of little wolves in the background. This person playing away on a flute. Spiraling magic in the air. And then this uses the daybound mechanic, so if a turn passes where someone plays no spells, whether it's the controlling player or another one, they transform into a werewolf. Wild Song Howler, so the same wolves are all hanging out around this same woman, except now that she's changed into a wolf. She's discarded her pipe, and her howl is what is attracting them. See the rainbowing in the foil, the background, the way the trees and the fence sort of speak to like a farmyard scene, whereas this one has enraptured all their fellow wolf. Look at this little tiny wolf pup. They're so cute. Love a big fuzzy friend. Ethereal Investigator. Oh, that's interesting. If this had come out with Murders at Kraloff Manor, this might be a detective. But we have a ghost. Big curled fingers, very haunted. Lovely old style jacket and little cravat. And then its face is like, is that a lantern with a top hat? That's very cool. They're up in the attic. You can see in this house gas lights, and it's got this very Victorian feel to it. An unfortunate person's been murdered, stabbed in the back by this dagger. And this big haunted friend is here to investigate. I'd watch a film about a ghost investigating murders. And it uses the investigate mechanic, very flavorful, to make clue tokens. Cool little ghost. Alchemist's Gambit. So, as much as this is a Victorian world, we seem to have a sort of steampunk wizard here who's made some kind of what I can only describe as a doohickey. I apologize if that's not the technical term. It's spitting out fire. This isn't a foil, but it is an extended art. See the way the sort of plasma spills out of this thing? There's a very maniacal look on the face. Very sort of steampunk visionary inventor. That's a very, very funny text on this card. So, costs 1 and 2 red. Ignoring the cleave effect, take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. At the beginning of that turn's end, you lose the game. So throwing this down at the end of a turn, taking an extra go, and if you don't win that turn, sorry, you're out of luck. Might go nice with some of the you can't lose the game cards, but unless you're casting it for its cleave cost, which is 4, 2 blue and a red, which will cut out that at the beginning of the turn's end step you lose the game, you're basically kind of throwing everything into one last ditch effort when this card comes out. Very funny way to, opponent pulls off a little fog spell or something when you're sure you're going to win, and then, oh, sorry, you explode at the end of your turn. Falcon Wreath Celebrants. Very exciting art in this one. They're at some sort of ball. They've got very fancy goblets. I'd love a goblet like that, full of blood. The outfits, very much popping. You know, the thigh-high boots with the straps. I'd love something like that. See the big sort of vaulted arches and the windows. Red leafed trees inside. Green candles and these braziers. Like, this is a party. They're having fun. They're at a dance. They're at a ball. They love the frame on these as well. See you see this with Crimson Vow, the sort of red balustrades with like the golden spirals, just to mark it out as a very sanguine vampiric set. And of course these use blood counters, a type of token that vampires love to make. Very cool. So this is Innocent Traveller, skinned to look like Lucy Westenra, who is from Dracula. That's one of Dracula's 3 brides, I think. So this is her as a human. Look at the art on this. Very classic oil painting style. The way it sort of fills the whole card. You have, the dress spilling down into the text box here. So they're a human. They cost 2 and 2 black. They're a 1/3. During your upkeep, at the beginning of your upkeep, an opponent may sacrifice a creature. If no one does, she transforms. So that's a really interesting little thing. You know, you're maybe forcing your opponent to sacrifice some little tokens they don't care about having around, but if no one wants to give up a piece at the start of your turn, then you get to transform her. I looked at her throat just now as she lay asleep, and the tiny wounds seemed not to have healed. So I think that's a line from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Oh, Lucy, a risen vampire. So this is the transformed side. So you can see she's gone into a very dramatic vampiric pose. In the last, she's sort of in repose, just relaxed, a human. Now she's a vampire. This is what happens if you let her transform. So she's a 3/3, flying. Malicious Invader gets +2/0 as long as an opponent controls a human. A lot of humans in this set, so it's very cool to be able to have things that sort of bet on your opponent having a creature type. Doesn't necessarily work super well in, say, Commander, although humans are a very prevalent type. But having this in like a limited event where you can kind of expect humans to be playing a big part. Van Helsing raised his lantern and drew the slide. By the consecrated light that fell on Lucy's face, we could see that the lips were crimson with fresh blood. So yes, Van Helsing checking out this poor girl who had been bitten by Dracula and realizing that she too has been feeding on human blood. Very cool art. Just the vibrancy in this pose, the askew, torn up painting, and the... You know, when you have a vampire girlfriend, you have to put plastic sheets over your wallpaper, otherwise they'll just get scratched up. Kaya Geist Hunter. So this is one of the planeswalkers from this set. Kaya, I think I first came across when reading the Kaldheim story. Very cool character. Uses these enchanted daggers and can sort of cut through anything, fights ghosts. Look at this art. We have our character here. Hair's done immaculately. Purple glowing eyes to match those daggers. If you look here, you see a vampire that has been cut through by the blades, and rather than blood or bone, turning into red petals, rose petals, red leaves maybe. Just look at the way that's been, vampire's been sort of erased from where these blades have cut through. Very striking scene. Kaya herself bursting through with flowers, a vampire hunting regalia, stakes on a bandolier, lots of leather and purple, big glowing purple orb, not sure what that is, but wow, what cool art. Fighting vampires and looking amazing doing it. The ultimate on this card, very fun. Exile all cards from all graveyards and then make a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying for each of them. Just late in the game, popping this down and being like, you have 20 cards, you have 20 cards, you have 20 cards. Let's just do this. Suddenly I have 80 ghosts on the field. Let's see what that does. Very cool. I love the Planeswalker cards. Such interesting design space. Bloodsworn Squire. So we have the foil here. We have a very cool looking vampire swearing an oath, holding out this blade, little red tie along its pommel, very symmetrical guard, little inset gem, very cool. So this is another transforming card. We love the transforming card. It's much like the one we saw earlier. It's got that lovely frame, only because this is a black card, it's got a black balustrade instead of a red. This has the ability, you pay 1 and a black, discard a card, and it gains indestructible until end of turn and tap it. So you can attack with it and then decide to make it indestructible or make it indestructible in response to an opponent's thing. Then if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, transform it. So it's a graveyard matter card. Bloodsworn Knight. So they've leveled up from a squire. You see they're looking a bit more weathered and scarred. They've got a big axe. They're now being dubbed a knight. So before, where they were swearing an oath on a blade, now they're having their shoulders touched. Look at her. She's been through some battles. Keeps the ability from the first side, only instead of a 3/3, its power and toughness are now equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, which for its transform cost you'll be expecting is at least 4, and it'll just continue to get bigger as you lose things to fights or discard them off her own ability. Very cool. Very cool. Cemetery Protector. So for 2 and 2 white, this is a human soldier. Flash, always funny to see on something like this. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So there's something fun about sort of how these two interact. You know, with this filling your graveyard with creatures and you needing to have creatures in your graveyard, and it gets stronger for having creatures in the graveyard, this one can pop out suddenly, remove a creature from the graveyard, make this weaker and block it. Very cool. There's just a sort of synchronicity here, just in the way these two are posing as well. The sword and shield pointed out compared to the squire, who's facing in that direction. Facing a blade in that direction. Anything that, especially in limited, lets you fill your field with 1/1 tokens is always very cool and can get out of hand very fast. Yeah, there's very cool art here. You know, they've got that sort of very classic knight regalia. They're standing in front of this sort of gateway here. Wrought iron, covered in ice. They're protecting this gate against the oncoming vampire hordes. A lot of the Innistrad sets are just human knights, sort of church members, all using whatever they can to keep the ghosts and vampires and zombies and monsters at bay. Because even in a place that is straight out of a nightmare, a sort of perpetual place of Halloween, there is hope. You know, you find your solace where you can. And that's our last card. We get onto our token. A treasure token. And we all know what these do. Tap, sacrifice, add a mana of any colour. But this, however, is coming in a beautiful wooden box inlaid with gems. You know, a gorgeous little treasure box. And when you pop it open, a bloody eye on a handkerchief staring out at you. I mean, it's someone's treasure. Wonder who this eye belonged to. Wonder if this eye has any magical powers. Some people keep eyes foci. You think of the Eye of Vecna, for example, a very famous enchanted eye. This looks very cool. If I have anything that makes treasure tokens, I might have to use this, especially for any Halloween games. And on our other side, a wolf. Look at this good puppy. Slavering jaws, red eyes, floofy fur. Oh, they've killed a bat. Is it a vampire? Is it just a regular bat? Very hard to catch. Hard won. I mean, there's a very sort of werewolf versus vampires feel in this set. The humans are almost just collateral damage. So it's very cool seeing. You're like, yes, this is a wolf. It is a 3/2 wolf. I'm used to them being like 2/2 and green. This is like a red 3/2. And it has hunted a bat. And you have this sort of splatter here. I'm not sure if it's mushrooms growing or if it's meant to represent blood. Very striking. Thank you for joining me here on this, the most scariest of nights, to look at our fantastic vampiric cards, our werewolves, our monsters, our ghost hunters, our friends from Bram Stoker's Dracula, our party goers, because it is a night for partying after all, our mad mages, our curious ghosts, charismatic werewolves, our gorgeous graveyards, our swarm of of cephalopod seagulls. So many of them. Look at those in the background. Our pearly protected residences. Our farmers who've had enough. Our flaming phantoms. Our shipwrecked. Oh, sorry, just look at the way that lightning plays off of that shield. Our shipwrecked survivors. And our vampire slayers who've just had enough. I hope your Halloween is as wonderful as mine will be. I hope you eat so many treats your teeth fall out, watch some scary movies, and tell stories with those you love. Happy Halloween, and thank you for joining me.